Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Shannon Burberry, one of the Business Development Officers at GFD, and joining me is my colleague, our president, Heather Kitely. We thought we would just jump on here and have a little conversation to help all of you out in the field with some of the questions that you may be struggling with or things that have arisen for you. And if our viewpoint can help at all, we thought we would give it a shot. So welcome to all of you. And I guess I will take on the first question here for you, Heather, and that is just, is preneed relevant right now in this situation?
Hi, Shannon. And, I'm just so thankful that we have this opportunity because there's been a lot of questions coming into our organization from people who are really struggling to how can they pivot with, and is preneed even important when we have all of this stuff going on? So I'm going to talk a little bit about my cousin, because I think that my cousin has really oriented me in terms of what people are thinking about. So I got a call from my cousin the other day. He's about 75 and he has COVID. So he was diagnosed with COVID and he's going to be fine, which is great. But he said, I've been thinking about doing my pre-arrangement forever, and I've never gotten around to it. And now that I'm sitting at home and I have nothing else to think about and I have COVID and I'm seeing what's happening with other people, I just want to get it done. And so we had a good conversation, and he's since gone on and he's gotten things organized. And it got me thinking, like, if he's feeling this way, how many other people are feeling that way, right? So I think people are sitting at home, and we know from our experience in pre-need that it takes a life event typically to get people motivated, right? Like, you can have lots of conversations with people about pre-need, but it isn't until they have something happen in their life, death of a spouse, death of a close friend, an experience that makes them feel like their mortality is more real. And really, if you think about it, this is an unprecedented time, and people are sitting at home with really nothing else to do besides think about their mortality, and it's being like thrown in their face all day long through their phones and through everything else. So I think that pre-need is relevant. I think that the messaging, that we have to be careful with the messaging, and I know we're working on a couple of tools for our members for that, but I would say definitely this is a really great time to be reaching out and talking to families. And if we don't reach out to them with our message, somebody else is going to, right? And we want to make sure that we're there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I know that we struggle at times with how we can approach people on such a sensitive subject, to some, to many really, and also in a way that isn't the norm for us. So I think a lot of funeral directors, from what I have heard, are struggling with the lack of contact with family. So that face-to-face that we all thrive on, and where people, we really want that connection with people.
It's
so
building that
how
intimacy,
do we do that?
right? Yeah.
How do we do that remotely when we can't connect with people face-to-face?
It's something that I've been really thinking a lot about, because I think about, when I was actively selling pre-need in the field and talking to people about pre-need, one of my strengths was building that intimacy, right? Building that connection with families, which I was very skilled at doing when I'm sitting face to face with people. But when we don't have that opportunity to be face to face, I think that that's really challenging. Do you have any ideas that our members can maybe think about doing or build into their practice? Because for me, I'm really challenged with that piece.
Well, it's funny that we're both talking about our personal experiences, and I think that that's really what's so relevant, is that if we've been through something, we, like you said, we can appreciate the benefits of it. And I had a loose end for myself with respect to some things that financially I wanted to take care of, and I was speaking with my investment fellow, and he said, we can still do this. We can do it over the phone if you're free. It's totally possible. And so we did that. And throughout the experience, we were probably on the phone for a good 45 minutes. He kept apologizing. I'm so sorry, Shannon. This is so awkward. And I said, you know what? It's not. Honestly, please, like, don't apologize. This is fine. And the reason why it was fine, and the reason why it didn't feel awkward to me as the client, is because it was so important to me. Like, I needed to have this peace of mind. I needed to have this done. And doing it over the phone, it really did not feel awkward to me at all. So I think it's a mindset.
Well, and maybe that's the thing that we need to keep in mind, right? Like, so much, it's like so many of the barriers that we have, I find, when it comes to change are barriers that we have within ourselves, right? So, I mean, I think, oh my gosh, I'm challenged with how do I build that intimacy because maybe I'm not getting what I need in order to, do that thing that I do or build that trust with families. But I think the important thing to remember is that maybe this is something that people are going to be comfortable with. And I imagine the younger generation, this is all they know in terms of communication. So maybe this is something that is really more of an issue with ourselves than it is with the general public.
Right. And right now, we all know that we're communicating differently with our own family members, just day-to-day conversations, check-ins. We just had Easter weekend. People were trying to set up FaceTimes with their family, figure out ways to even dine together
Yeah.
remotely. So I think that even though we think that people perhaps in those older generations aren't capable of using the technology, they are, and they're learning. They're learning from their grandkids. And again, I had another personal experience with the loss of someone in my family, and even my own family members when I was on the phone with them, explaining that things are different right now and that things will be handled differently. But to them, it didn't matter. Again, they were just wanting to be taken care of. They understood that. People know the restrictions that are in place. We've been at this for several weeks now. So
Yeah.
I think they expect that, business has to be done differently. And to them,
And it's funny, right? Because while I'm thinking about listening to what you're saying, I'm realizing that my parents have just started doing online banking. And my dad was always like, never in 100 years will I ever do online banking. I don't want to do it. And then this hits and I say, you know what, why don't you just give it a try? I get a text from my mom the other day who's like, oh my gosh, your father's on there every day. He loves it, right? So maybe
yeah,
you're right. It's just a matter of embracing it and people are realizing that they have to change. So I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying there.
yeah, for sure. Do you think that I know some of the members have said that they are still mailing out documents to people. Do you think that it's still safe to do that, or what
You know,
suggestions do
it's
you have surrounding that?
it's interesting, right? When we think about safety, because we've been struggling a lot with this discussion at GFD. And as you know, we've made a decision to not allow or to restrict mail coming into the organization because there is no, there are concerns about, the virus being on surfaces. And if you think about the population that we're mailing to, they're the ones who are most at risk. So I think that
Mhm.
that's certainly a decision that has to be made by each location. Um, but if you have an older population who doesn't have the technology, I think that's where you can be really challenged. So perhaps it's a matter of talking to them about if they have some kids in their family that can help them, or just making sure that if you are mailing documents out, that you're so careful with using PPE for preparing the documents and ensuring that, until that document leaves your hands, that there's no issues. But it's interesting, right? Who would have ever thought that mail would be a dangerous thing?
Right.
Crazy.
And to that point, I had to pick up a device for my daughter from her school, and they had a really well designed setup whereby you would pull up in your vehicle. I know a lot of businesses are doing that with the curbside. You pull up, there's a specific protocol as to staying in your vehicle, you're, keeping your social distancing. And so I think there have been, some funeral directors who have had to take things and leave them at a person's door. So again, like you said, I think as long as you're protecting yourself with what you drop off, making sure that you've been safely putting those documents in so that they can be safe. And then when you
Hmm.
get them back, if you had to do it that way. But like we said, I think this remote access is going to be easier than some of us think. And I know that
I
we
think
all
so.
struggle with change, but
Yeah, I think so. And I know that there has been a lot of requests for resources from GFD, so I just want to reassure everyone, stay tuned. We have some resources coming. I know we've already put some out there for aftercare and how to do those things remotely, but also in terms of digital packages to send to families and signing and all of those pieces. So we are very busy working on behalf of our members to get that stuff out there, so stay tuned for that. And I think we're going to be doing a session on online marketing too, I think, right, Shannon? So
yeah.
everyone can stay tuned for that session as well.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us, everybody. Stay posted. We're going to have more coming your way.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.